Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about Bitcoin beyond the first world. What are the applications of Bitcoin outside of Western developed countries like Europe and America? I'm going to dig into where it's being used across the world and how it's being used. Before I begin, though, I want to give a shout out to Ledin. Ledin is one of my sponsors. It's the best place to get a Bitcoin mortgage, so using your Bitcoin as collateral to get a mortgage, or to borrow against your Bitcoin using it as collateral for any loan of any type. Beware, though, there are some issues with this where you could get margin called. So read up on that, make sure you understand it. But that's the best place to go do that. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and switch on over to the newsletter. So I first write this on Thursdays, and then it comes out on Sundays. So if you want to see this first, subscribe. The link is here to the newsletter. Okay, cool. So with that being said, Bitcoin is rife with implications for the first world, but the truth is that the technology is for everyone. It's for the rich folks like Brian Armstrong, Jesse Powell, Ray Dalio, just as much as Mama Rosa. So Mama Rosa is so Mama Rosa is one of the individuals here who gives out or like sells items on at Bitcoin Beach for Bitcoin. So it's for the wealthy and the poor. And as technology, as a technology for everyone, Bitcoin's adoption is on the rise. So reporting from the end of 2021 indicated that the number of wallets holding more than 0.001 Bitcoin or more had doubled to 40 million plus unique wallets. It's really hard to know how many unique people own Bitcoin. You'd have to go to every single exchange, find out how many people have Bitcoin. And so it's super, super tough. And so the number of wallets holding 0.01 Bitcoin are approaching 10 million. So that's a pretty big achievement. And this was also highlighted by Will Clemente, an analyst in the space. Really, really good, shot here showing that like we're showing peak accumulation in that smaller BTC size. So the minnows, not necessarily the big whales, are wealthy. And we're never going to know the exact number of individuals, but by the end of 2022, the number of U.S. individuals who own at least one cryptocurrency, it's hard to tell which one, will probably climb to around 20% or 33 million people. That's a pretty strong trend, and that's pretty amazing to see. We're seeing more people than ever use Bitcoin and have access to Bitcoin, and this is super bullish. And so let's go ahead and dive into some examples on how Bitcoin is being used to reconceive and revitalize economies in the world. So let's talk about El Salvador. We've talked about this one before. If you watch this channel, you've definitely heard me talk about El Salvador. So they passed a law making Bitcoin a legal tender. They also created a Bitcoin compatible wallet that was state sponsored and ATMs. You can use non-state sponsored wallets, but just to get people onboarded, that they thought that this was the fastest way to do it. A large part of their decision behind this was, one, to kind of revitalize the country, and then two, was to remove middlemen from international remittances, which was a huge portion of GDP for that country. So, Bitcoin removes that middleman, removes those huge fees that MoneyGram and Western Union were taking. And so it makes it possible to transmit that money from your family at home without any middleman involved, which is good for security and fees. Alex Gladstein, good buddy of mine and chief strategy officer for the Human Rights Foundation and columnist for Bitcoin Magazine, describes this as nothing less than revolutionary. So Alex says the amount of time, energy, and money wasted or sucked out of middlemen is tragic. Sending money instantly from anywhere in the world using Bitcoin directly to a Salvadorian's phone, where it is held in BTC or auto-converted to dollars in an app like Strike, is revolutionary. Salaries in El Salvador typically range from $400 to $150 per month. Who says you need to be wealthy to use Bitcoin? They use it too. The country is up and running on the Lightning Network, a layer 2 scaling solution for sending and receiving Bitcoin with practically almost like basically no fees involved. Microtransactions like buying a cup of coffee or paying highway toll. I'm not sure if like microtransactions is the exact right word, but those are low value use cases on Lightning are actually doable, including micropayments. So this definitely feels a little bit like the peer-to-peer cash that a lot of people feel Bitcoin is supposed to represent. Cool. So we covered El Salvador. How about Palestine? So Palestine's in a constant state of civil unrest due to its conflict with Israel. Consider the complete destruction of Gaza by Israeli airstrikes in May 2021. So here's that look almost a year ago of the devastation caused by the Israeli military. I'm not picking sides here. I'm not trying to say which one is in the right or not. Just this is what happened. Yet lurking in this physical destruction is nothing less less than the collapse of the economy too. So according to a 2017 IMF report, the war destroyed over 60% of Gaza's capital stock by the end of 2008. And then bombings in 2014 destroyed 85% of what remained. This is a huge devastation. The World Bank reports Gaza's overall unemployment at 48%, which is wild. Not in a good way. This is obviously hugely negative, but just calling that out. Half the population lives in poverty, and Palestine depends on the Israeli shekel to facilitate its economy. A 2012 UN paper even predicted that Gaza might be unlivable by 2020. Obviously, that's not happening, but certainly a huge amount of capital flight and others. So, but Alex Gladstein, again, I mentioned him again because he's done so much good work across the world, found a Palestinian Bitcoiner who told him about how the role crypto and Bitcoin plays there. Uqab, I think I'm mispronouncing that. This individual, though, but I'm going to go with that. This person explained that Gazans are economically cut off of the world, but Bitcoin is a checkpoint that is always open. He said that Palestinians are also open to buying the dip, with some even getting out of poverty because of it. They are investing little by little, bit by bit, gradually, but it is working, it is slowly creeping in. And so where El Salvador has formalized Bitcoin's role in shaping its economy, Bitcoin forms the basis of Palestine's resistance economy. The vision of Palestine resistance is the strengthening independence, and Bitcoin is the ultimate strengthener of financial independence. It's not a total solution, but it's a solution on the monetary side, and is definitely a prime example of how Bitcoin can lift folks out of poverty and lift them from capital controls. Okay, and the final one I want to cover, the Central African Republic. Following in El Salvador's footsteps, the Central African Republic made Bitcoin into legal tender this April 2022. It's a tiny country that holds gold and diamonds, yet remains one of the poorest, least developed countries in the world, with armed rebel groups controlling much of the territory outside of the capital. So it's not exactly a great background for an economy to survive. 65-year-old Faustian Archange Tutorari, a doctor in mathematics, is president of the country. He said that the move towards a Bitcoin adoption would improve the conditions of his country and the people who live there. This is, I think, a really smart marketing move where no one had really heard of the Central African Republic before now. It also is at least a Hail Mary pass to try to figure out how to build this economy up again, and maybe through storing wealth in something that's extremely hard to seize and transmitting where it can't be censored, which is what Bitcoin represents. That's a great way to do it. To what extent can the country truly become a Bitcoin prime mover is TBD. National attitude still very wildly on crypto in Africa, so crypto kind of overarching Bitcoin and everything else, from bullish to curious to totally against it. But the Central African Republic, a tiny country that very few are familiar with, in the first in the region to make a big bold bet, it's that somewhere between innovative and Hail Mary pass. In conclusion, Bitcoin wasn't designed for the elite. It was designed as an all-inclusive currency for everyday people to use as they see fit. That's a value proposition that everyone in the world can connect to, from the mansions of Beverly Hills to the slums of Mumbai. Whether you use it for speculation, everyday transactions, or to protect your assets from a hostile government, Bitcoin increasingly presents itself as a long-term hedge against our uncertain futures, and that's why I hodl. If you liked this, please subscribe, please give it a like, or throw in a comment. That helps with the algorithm, helps get this out to more people. Appreciate you watching, and see you next week. Cheers.